Kalief Browder was born May 25, 1993 in the Bronx, New York. At birth, he was placed in Child Protective Services due to his mother's drug addiction. Along with his brother Akeem and sister Nicole, he was adopted by Vanita and Eddie Browder, who were already raising his two siblings Dion and Kamal, and had two sons of their own. The family lived in a two-story brick house on Prospect Avenue near the Bronx Zoo. Kalief attended New Day Academy. He liked going to the park, playing sports, and playing video games with his friends. He was a funny kid who always made people laugh. Although growing up in poverty, he had a pretty regular childhood. When Kalief was about 12 years old, he found out he was adopted. Also around that time, Kalief's adopted father would leave the family. With his father being gone, Kalief started to hang out with the wrong crowd. At 16, he was convinced by some friends to steal a bread truck, wanting to go on a joyride, and would end up getting arrested. Because Kalief was the driver, he was convicted of a felony and given 5 years probation for the offense. On May 14, 2010, just 2 weeks before Kalief's 17th birthday, he would be arrested once again. He had been out to a party that night and would begin to walk home with his friend Jamel around 2 a.m. Suddenly, they were stopped by NYPD. They thought this was a regular stop and frisk routine, but the officer had a man in the back of his squad car, claiming to have been robbed by Kalief 2 weeks earlier. The accuser stated he was robbed for a backpack containing a camera, $700, a credit card, and an iPod. Given this accusation, the officer told Kalief and his friend they would be taken down to the precinct. He wanted to check if there was a police report that had been filed on the incident, and they most likely would let them go. But Kalief wasn't released. He would go before the judge and was charged with robbery in the second degree. His bail would be set at $3,000 and his bond at $900. His family wasn't able to make bail and would ask a longtime neighbor who would loan them the money, only to find out Kalief's bond had been denied because of probation violation, stemming from his previous arrest with the bread truck. Charged as an adult, he would be sent off to Rikers Island to await trial. Arriving at Rikers, he was housed in adolescents, the inmates there being from 16 to 18 years old. He would get in many fights and was jumped repeatedly, being moved to several different housing units receiving the same treatment. This would eventually have Kalief placed in solitary confinement. In addition to dealing with inmates, he was also beaten and starved by the correctional officers, sometimes not let out of his cell to shower. By February 2012, the Bronx DA couldn't find a witness in Kalief's case. It was said that he had allegedly moved to Mexico. Kalief had spent over 420 days in solitary by then. He was falling apart mentally and feeling suicidal, making several attempts to take his own life during his stay at Rikers. He spent over 1,000 days on Rikers. Nearly 800 of those days he was kept in solitary confinement. Throughout his time, Kalief maintained his innocence and requested a trial but was only offered plea deals. His request for trial would continue to get delayed, giving him over 30 court days before his case would finally be dismissed and all charges dropped, making Kalief a free man. But the damage was already done. Kalief felt like he had demons walking with him from the things he had seen and went through, destroying his happiness. He couldn't sleep at night and would become stressed out and would make another attempt to take his own life before finding a sense of purpose, enrolling in school to get his GED. He filed a civil lawsuit against the city, the New York Police Department, the Bronx District Attorney, and the Department of Corrections. The lawsuit gained media attention and would start to spread across local news stations in New York. His story was written about in The New Yorker, attracting the attention of Jay-Z and Rosie O'Donnell, who would bring him on The View. Because of his appearances on TV, some people in Kalief's neighborhood grew to believe he had money. He got into an altercation with a guy from his block and was shot, escaping with a flesh wound to the abdomen. Kalief felt like he was cursed. He would also spend Christmas that year at the psych ward at Harlem Hospital following a manic episode. Amongst all of this, Kalief was scheduled for his first deposition with the city of New York, a process in which he would be sworn under oath giving evidence on his case. Depositions are full of questions mainly to try and discredit the victim and can take up to 4 to 6 hours. During these depositions, Kalief became more overwhelmed and paranoid, having to relive the past through the questioning, taking him back to a very dark place. On June 6, 2015, 15 days after his third deposition, Kalief would take his own life, hanging himself from his mother's home. Kalief's mother took over his lawsuit pursuing a wrongful death claim, continuing to fight for his justice. Suffering from a long-time battle with heart complications, she too passed away from a heart attack on October 14, 2016. Kalief's family would keep fighting. In January 2019, New York City settled the civil lawsuit with the Browder family for $3.3 million, but nobody from the Bronx DA's office was personally held accountable for Kalief's death. Rest in peace, Kalief Browder.